You know what's a sucker to me? A sucker is a nigga who pick who he be fight with.
Right.
Like if you sitting and you go, oh, I'm not going because this.
I want him, but I fuck with this one.
Yeah, I think I can take him.
Right.
You want to fight the nigga you think you can beat.
Jay Prince might not be as untouchable as he wants people to think. For years, he's carried himself like the Don of the South, flexing his influence, making calls, acting like he runs the whole game. But things shifted when he crossed paths. With 50 Cent, that's when the heat really started. See, Jay might have dismissed 50 as just another loud rapper, nothing to take seriously. But 50's no rookie. If Jay Prince showed up with ego, 50 arrived with a full arsenal, ready for whatever. And now, with rumors swirling about Jay's alleged connection to a real shooting, the situation's reached a whole new level.
Curtis, 50, Jackson. Now, this is somebody who is a philanthropist, rapper, artist, business person, you name it. Used to live in another city up north, but found his way down south. This is one person who is now a Houstonian. I want to thank him.
So, how did this tension even begin? Let's rewind a bit. Jay Prince isn't your typical label executive talking big. Nah, he's got deep roots. He co-founded Rap-A-Lot Records and has been calling shots in Houston since the 80s. That kind of confidence only comes with real power. In Houston, Jay moves like royalty. Local artists treat him like a king. You either show respect or you're left outside the gates.
We don't capitalize and try to glorify this shit. Now, we gonna sit here and have conversations about niggas as strong as us.
I just want to say it's an honor to be here today. I'm really excited about being in Houston. Since I've made my way out here, the Houstonians have embraced me with open arms, and it just feels like a great place for me to expand G-Unity as a foundation and continue to work with programs like HISD and may turn on all the different efforts that I can get involved in, you know, and it's exciting for me, like to make the next level.
But that whole vibe, it doesn't fly with 50. He's not the type to kiss rings or wait for an invitation. While many rappers play the industry game, hoping for approval from the big bosses, 50's always been on his own path. He's a lone wolf, never intimidated by top dogs. Let's not forget he already went head-to-head with J. Rule and Murder Inc. and came out unscathed. Jay Prince might hold OG status, but 50's built his own empire. G-Unit Records dropped in 2003, and it wasn't just a label, it was a movement. 50 never followed industry politics, fake loyalty, or that pay-for-protection game. So imagine the buzz when word spread that 50 was heading to Houston. That's like a king stepping into another king's castle. From the moment that rumor surfaced, you knew something was about to go down. 50 didn't roll into Houston just to chill and sip iced tea. This wasn't checkers, it was chess. When he touched down in H-Town, it wasn't about a temporary visit. It was a calculated power move. He planted his flag with the G-Unit camp program, and before long, he became a staple in the city. His presence energized the streets. People were excited, seeing 50 at local events, giving back, supporting the community. This wasn't some celebrity. Dropping in for publicity, he was genuinely putting in work. But not everyone was thrilled. Jay Prince, he was paying close attention. Jay's used to being the boss of bosses, running the show. Even with his legendary reputation, he wasn't about to quietly watch someone else steal that spotlight in his own territory, especially not someone like 50, who wasn't playing by the usual check-in rules. At first, it was subtle. 50 did what he always does, trolling, throwing slick jabs online and in interviews. He knew he had influence and wasn't losing sleep over Jay. It felt like two generals eyeing each other from rival castles, launching verbal shots instead of stepping onto the battlefield. But then, things escalated. 50 made it clear. Houston was his now. He took to Twitter posting that he still loved New York. But Houston? That was home. That post wasn't just about liking the weather. It was a bold statement, a public claim, on Jay's territory. See, New York had grown cold for 50. Not just the climate, but the whole business landscape. Taxes were draining his money, and building an empire there? Tough. Houston, though? That was prime ground. Lower taxes, a vibrant rap scene, fresh energy. The perfect place for 50 to plant his next empire. And that's when Jay Prince really felt the shift. This wasn't just another artist passing through. This was 50 Cent setting up shop, claiming power in a city where artists usually had to check in with Prince before making moves.
In a news conference after the big ceremony, 50 Cent said his plans in Shreveport go beyond just G-Unit Studios.
I got to create the nightlife. I got to get into the real estate in the area to be able to facilitate what happens after big events happen.
When asked about bringing employment to the area, Jackson said it's already started.
You've seen some of the good things that Tyler Perry done in Atlanta, and you'll see this mirror that to a degree.
50 Cent didn't head to Houston just to relax and sip sweet tea. This wasn't casual, it was strategy. When he arrived in H-Town, it wasn't simply about relocating, it was a calculated power move. He established his presence through the G-Unit Camp program, and before long, he became a recognized figure in the city. His arrival stirred the streets in a positive way. People were excited. Seeing 50 at local events, giving back, supporting the community, that was something different. This wasn't a celebrity chasing attention. He was genuinely contributing to the city, but not everyone welcomed it. Jay Prince was watching closely. Jay's used to being in charge, the boss of bosses. Even with his established reputation, he wasn't going to sit back while someone else attracted that kind of attention in his own territory. Especially not someone like 50, who wasn't following the usual check-in protocol. At first, it was subtle. 50 doing what he's known for, throwing light jabs, trolling online, making sly comments in interviews. He knew he had influence and wasn't worried about Jay. It was like two commanders eyeing each other from opposing castles, exchanging verbal shots rather than stepping into direct conflict. But then, things intensified. 50 made it clear. Houston was his now. He posted on Twitter saying he still loved New York, but Houston, that was home. That tweet wasn't just about liking the climate. It was a bold statement, a public claim on Jay's turf. See, New York had grown cold for 50. Not just the weather, but the entire business environment. Taxes were draining his earnings, and building an empire there? Nearly impossible. Houston, on the other hand, was prime ground. Lower taxes, a thriving rap scene, new energy, the perfect place for 50 to build his next empire. That's when Jay Prince really took notice. This wasn't just another artist passing through. This was 50 Cent establishing a base, asserting influence in a city where artists typically had to check in with Prince before making moves. But 50 didn't show up in Houston asking for permission. He operated on his own terms, moving when and how he wanted. And he wasn't there just to shoot a video or make noise. He came to invest, to build, and to give back, earning real respect in the process. Yet while 50 was simply doing his thing, Jay Prince took it personally. In Jay's world, skipping the check-in isn't just disrespectful, it's a direct challenge to his authority. For years, artists arriving in Houston knew the drill. Check in with Jay or expect problems. But 50 wasn't following anyone's playbook. So when he arrived without making that call, Jay felt disrespected. It wasn't just a slight, it was a blow to his reputation. Feeling the pressure, Jay didn't just respond with words, he took action. Reports say he sent his crew to pressure 50, trying to collect what's known as a street tax for protection. But this wasn't just any rapper, this was 50 Cent. You think he's folding under pressure? Not likely. This is someone who survived real conflicts, bullets, and corporate battles. If Jay thought 50 would quietly pay up to keep the peace, he underestimated him. 50's approach has been clear from the start. Get rich or die trying. He didn't achieve success by backing down, and Jay should have realized that. 50 didn't arrive in Houston alone. He brought G-Unit, a team always ready to stand with him. This wasn't an industry newcomer arriving naive. 50 came prepared, with strength and support. So, when Jay sent his people to confront him, 50 didn't flinch. That move didn't intimidate, it escalated things. It wasn't just an insult, it was a direct challenge. Jay acted as if 50 could be pressured into submission. But that wasn't the case. The disrespect only fueled the tension. And once 50 made it clear he wouldn't check in or bow down, Jay's response turned serious. He started issuing warnings, signaling that Houston was a no-fly zone for anyone refusing to play by his rules. But by then, 50 had already broken those rules, and he wasn't leaving. That no-fly zone declaration from Jay Prince was his way of drawing a line. Stay out. Of my business, that kind of move might have sent a lesser rapper packing and catching the next flight out. But 50 Cent? He's not built like that. 50 wasn't just another newcomer to the industry, he's a rap mogul and a business leader. Yet Jay Prince kept treating him like an inexperienced artist with no understanding of the streets or the industry. Big mistake. 50 had been several steps ahead from the start, and he chose to counter the heat with strategy, taking the battle to a place where he always had the upper hand: social media. Instagram became 50's platform of choice, and he didn't hold back. He turned it into a stage for humor at Jay Prince's expense: memes, sharp captions, subtle jabs in nearly every post. He mocked Jay like it was an open mic session. While Jay grew frustrated behind the scenes, 50 laughed it off, watching his followers enjoy the show. And to be fair, he had every reason to smile. This wasn't just playful trolling. While Jay focused on asserting control, 50 was quietly laying down serious groundwork. He wasn't simply passing through. He had a $20 million G-Unit studio lined up for Houston. Television projects, film production, local job opportunities. He was gearing up to ignite a creative wave in the city. That investment could have turned Houston into a media hub almost overnight. A G-Unit presence on the map could have opened doors for careers, boosted economic growth, and shined a new spotlight on Southern rap. 50 was serious about building a legacy, not just generating wealth, but leaving a lasting impact. But just when everything seemed on track, he pulled the entire project and moved it to Shreveport, Louisiana. Officially, 50 said the studio didn't happen in Houston due to infrastructure challenges. But let's be honest, anyone paying attention knew that wasn't the full explanation. The real reason lay beneath the surface: the rising tension, the street dynamics, the pressure that was beginning to build a little too intensely. This wasn't about construction permits or equipment, it was about a turf battle spilling into business. And being the strategist he is, 50 chose to avoid unnecessary conflict and keep moving forward on his own terms. Houston's streets were heating up, and not because of the Texas sun. With Jay Prince applying more pressure, 50 saw where things were headed. His studio was becoming a potential target. The conflict wasn't staying online, it was starting to take shape in the real world. And for 50, that crossed a line. Posting jabs on Instagram was one thing, but risking people's jobs, safety, and futures was a whole different matter. And 50 wasn't about to gamble with that, so instead of creating a public spectacle, he made a calculated decision. Quietly, without drama or fanfare, he relocated the entire operation. No scene, no headlines, just a strategic exit. It wasn't about conceding. It was about not letting street politics jeopardize business or turn opportunity into conflict. But here's the twist. While Jay Prince might have been sending warnings, Houston itself was showing love. The city embraced 50 as if he'd always been one of their own. His arrival sparked fresh energy in H-Town, and the appreciation was real, from the community to the city leaders. Houston's mayor, Sylvester Turner, became one of 50's strongest supporters. This wasn't just celebrity admiration. Turner recognized the vision. He saw a man who wasn't solely focused on profit or fame, but someone committed to building, giving back, and leading. Turner fully backed 50. He even awarded him the key to the city. And to top it off, he declared November the 24th as 50 Cent Day. The announcement was made during the city's Thanksgiving Day parade. That's the kind of recognition that marks a legacy. But Turner's respect wasn't just about record sales or celebrity status. He saw something deeper in 50, a businessman with real heart for the community. 50 didn't come to Houston to take, he came to contribute, and he proved it through action. His G-Unity Foundation quickly got to work, launching programs to uplift local teens and provide real opportunities. And that was only the beginning. It also embraced the holiday spirit, organizing turkey giveaways, donating toys, and showing genuine care for the community. And these weren't token gestures. He donated $850,000 worth of toys to local families without turning it into a publicity stunt. No flashy posts, no self-promotion, just pure support for the city that welcomed him. On top of that, he raised another $500,000 for a Houston children's charity with ease. Didn't just arrive in Houston, he elevated it. While others were caught up in street games, he stayed focused on building a lasting legacy. Cent didn't just show up in Houston making promises, he backed them up with action. At one charity event, he auctioned off 2 giant bottles of his own champagne, raising serious funds. But that was only the beginning. The entire event ended up bringing in an impressive $6 million for the cause. That wasn't just for publicity. That was real impact. He wasn't there for staged photos or empty words. 50 stepped in, hands-on, making a difference and changing lives. So, how do you criticize someone doing that much good? Truthfully, you can't. Unless you're someone like Jay Prince, watching your influence start to fade in your own city. See, as 50 won over Houston's hearts, Jay's power began to look unstable. When an entire city embraces an outsider who's actually delivering results, it's natural for the old guard to feel their grip slipping. And Jay, he wasn't the type to take that lightly. Suddenly, the city's longtime figurehead was being overshadowed. That quiet resentment started to build, but instead of escalating things publicly, the tension stayed under the radar. And the inside story, it didn't come straight from Jay or 50, it came from Tony Yayo, G-Unit's enforcer. Everyone wanted to know, why didn't G-Unit align with Jay Prince? Why skip the check-in when they hit Houston? Tony explained it in an interview with Vlad TV, keeping it candid. According to Yayo, G-Unit never saw themselves as a typical rap crew. They operated more like a squad of soldiers. They didn't rely on outside protection. They had each other's backs and handled their own issues. That whole check-in concept, to them, it didn't sound like safety. It sounded like submission. So when pressure came their way, Tony didn't sugarcoat it. He openly said what many only whispered: the check-in system was just another form of extortion. It wasn't really about safety, it was about paying up or becoming a target, straight up mafia style. And 50? He wasn't about to play along. He refused to bow down, and his team stood with him every step of the way. That's why the tension kept rising. G-Unit wasn't following the street politics that had controlled the city for years. On the surface, the check-in sounded like a friendly gesture. But let's be real, it's all in the wording. You weren't dropping money to the mafia for protection from harm. You were checking in with Houston's top rap boss. Sounds casual, until you realize the true meaning. Tony Yayo wasn't afraid to call it what it was, so let's not sugarcoat it. It wasn't about protection or hospitality, it was quiet pressure. A demand, pay up or face consequences. You weren't buying safety. You were buying permission to move freely without heat. And if you didn't pay that unspoken fee, you were marked. This wasn't a warm welcome, it was a hustle. A scam dressed up as street respect. While some artists might have stayed silent out of fear, 50 Cent and G-Unit weren't playing that game. Not even a little. They came to Houston with a mission to build, not to bleed artists dry. But for a long time, Jay Prince had the city on lock. If you were an up-and-coming rapper in Houston, or even just passing through, you had to check in. That was the rule if you wanted to move without trouble, but anyone who's watched a mafia film knows how it works. You're not paying for protection, you're paying not to be targeted. It's respect, but with a price. And the ones demanding it? They're often the same ones who can't guarantee your safety if you don't comply. That's not a welcome, it's a shakedown. Don't pay? Fine. But suddenly, you're getting robbed, attacked, or blocked in the industry, and somehow the very people you refuse to pay are nowhere to be found. Coincidence? Hardly. Cent wasn't going for it. Not even close. And Tony Yayo had his back completely. In fact, Tony didn't just speak on the pressure, he took it further, pointing to one of the darkest moments in recent rap history, the death of Pop Smoke. Pop followed all the so-called rules. He checked in, showed respect, played along, and still ended up gone. That tragedy was a wake-up call, and Tony didn't hold back. He said what others were scared to admit. The check-in system doesn't guarantee safety. It's a lie. Pop did everything right, but when it mattered most, the people who were supposed to protect him were nowhere to be found. That's why Tony called it what it really is. Extortion, plain and simple. And he's right. You can't keep hiding it behind slick words and street codes. The game's been exposed. Back in the 90s, people might have looked the other way. But this isn't the 90s anymore. Today's audience is looking for leaders, not leeches. People today want to see a rap leader give back to the community, not drain it for a few extra dollars. G-Unit stood firm on that. When Jay's crew came at them hard, demanding their so-called street tax, G-Unit didn't just refuse. They called out the entire system. They weren't afraid to label it for what it was: a power move disguised as tradition. They weren't simply dodging a fee, they were challenging the whole setup. Jay Prince's tactics weren't about unity or protection. They were about maintaining control. And G-Unit, they don't fold. They don't bow to anyone, especially not to a self-appointed king running what looked a lot like a rap mafia. So the conflict wasn't just about money, it was about principle. 50 Cent saw the industry for what it was, an outdated hustle doing more harm than good. He didn't want to become another J Prince. He aimed to be better. He wanted to leave behind a legacy built on respect, not fear. Refusing to check in was only the first step. 50 and Tony Yayo were ready to disrupt the entire system. Tony made it clear, the old rules needed to go. The smoke and mirror protection rackets were being exposed. Remember how 50 kept his charity work low-key? No need for attention, no fake flexing, just genuine care for the people. Meanwhile, J Prince was out chasing cameras, trying to turn his so-called heroic acts into viral moments. But 50 wasn't about to let that scripted PR show slide. He called it out right away. And he wasn't alone. Many others saw through it too. Jay was stuck playing an outdated game, trapped in a mindset from another time. That whole mob-style image might have worked in the 20th century, but this is the digital age. People aren't blind anymore. J Prince is pushing 60, yet still trying to act like a young street boss from the 90s. But the game has changed, and he didn't. Instead of evolving, he stayed stuck in old cycles, power plays, silent threats, and behind-the-scenes pressure, thinking it still worked in 2025 like it did in 1995. The check-in hustle didn't end when 50 stood his ground. It kept going. Fast forward to TakeOff and Quavo, who also didn't play along with Jay's system. And tragically, that independence ended in loss. TakeOff lost his life during that now infamous dice game, a senseless tragedy. And when it came time for Jay to speak, silence, or worse, confusing, vague statements dodging the real questions. No accountability, no ownership, just distractions. And it didn't stop there. Jay's grip on his street image slipped further when he publicly admitted to destroying evidence, a major red flag that had people questioning everything. It peeled the curtain back even more. Then came the heartbreaking case of Duke the Jeweler. The man won big in a dice game and barely had time to celebrate before he was robbed and killed. The timing felt too suspicious, the atmosphere cold, and the silence from those supposed to protect him deafening. But this has always been J Prince's way, ruling Houston through pressure, fear, and an old-school street rep. He's held power like a shadow boss, pulling strings from behind the scenes. But then came 50 Cent, a completely different kind of leader. 50 didn't show up trying to tax the city. He came to uplift it. Yes, he's building wealth, no question. But he's doing it the right way. No shady deals, no dice game setups, no quiet threats. He's about business, legacy, and making a real impact. No fake Don Corleone moves needed. When you put these two side by side, the difference is clear. Tia, Cent is building a future. He's investing in people, putting real money into the community, and creating opportunities to lift Houston higher. Meanwhile, Jay is still stuck in a fantasy, playing out an outdated mob script like he's starring in a rerun of The Godfather. But here's the twist. 50 isn't just joking around on Instagram anymore. The memes are on pause. Now he's on a mission to pull the mask off J Prince and show the world who he really is. No more whispers, just facts, proof, and the truth. Word on the street? 50's been quietly gathering information for a major expose, digging into the shady dealings that have kept Jay's empire afloat. And if he drops the full story, it won't just bruise Jay's ego. It could bring real legal heat. We're talking serious consequences, not just internet drama. Jay's long reign might finally be nearing its end. And it's 50 Cent, the outsider, turned Houston hero, who might bring the entire operation down. Tony Yayo already cracked the surface, and now 50's ready to blow the roof off. Will 50 Cent take the crown and end J Prince's run for good? We're watching history unfold. Smash that like button if you're backing 50. Drop a comment and tell us, should 50 expose it all? And don't forget to share this with your crew. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next drop. We've got more wild stories coming your way. See you in the next one.